All right, good evening, everyone. We are going to get started. My name is Dr. Naa-Solo Tettey. I am the creator and director of the HeartSmarts program. Happy March, happy Women's History Month. We are so excited to have you all join us again. This month, we have a great lineup for you. For the most part, our events will be Monday evenings at 7 p.m., but you should have received the calendar in the reminder yesterday. And so on the 28th, that event will be on a Thursday. So just be mindful of that. And as always, please share the information for these meetings with anyone who you think can benefit. All right, so today we have part two with the amazing Dr. Tumi Johnson. And just to give her bio again, for those of you who she may be new to you, Dr. Tumi Johnson is a dancer, poet, and an integrative holistic medical doctor and the author of Delicious Healing. Dr. Tumi uses her dance performance, poetry, and her medical training and expertise often in integrated ways to help people uncover and nurture their optimal desired well-being. And so we know how amazing our first session with her was. Tonight, we're going to actually delve a little bit deeper into the idea of emotional eating, dysfunctional eating for anyone who deals with that. And we'll have some exercises for you all to do as we go through the session. So make sure that you have something to write with, to write on. As always, please let me know how you all are doing today, and we will get started. So welcome, Dr. Tumi, and I am going to remove the spotlight. Also, I should say really quickly, when Dr. Tumi is finished presenting, you all can also put your questions for her in the chat. So thank you, Dr. Tumi, for joining us again.
Dr. Tettey, thank you for having me. And I feel so blessed to be in this, what I consider a sacred circle. So again, as Dr. Tettey said, hello, March, hello, Women's History Month. This is such a powerful time. The spring equinox is upon us. Let's dive in. I'm going to take you immediately on a trip back to a moment in my life that was powerful and that I think will be hopefully medicinal when I share with you how I came out of this place, and is very in keeping with today's topic. I'm reading from my book, Delicious Healing. Here it is. I had a very disordered relationship with food in which I woke up thinking about how I was going to get the food I wanted, would then have the food that I wanted, then having had it, feel numbed out and unable to function until very quickly the gnawing desire for that food returned again. I remember my low point, and it wasn't 1 year into this behavior. It was a good 4 years in when I steadily ate 7 bagels, one at a time, in a bathroom stall, feeling too full after 4, almost sick after 5, but continuing on until I could not feel anything. And that's when I had to admit I had a problem. That's what it felt like. And I start this offering today asking if you've ever been in a place of complete lack of control with your food, or a feeling of, I need this thing, not because I'm hungry, because I just don't want to feel the pain that I'm feeling. Or just feeling a sense of complete misalignment with the food that you are taking in. Feeling you're addicted, or feeling I am not the driver of this bus. That food is, my diet is, and it's not who I want driving this bus. It has been 13 plus years since I have felt that way. It's been 13 plus years that I have felt a sense of freedom with my food, freedom with the way I eat, with feeling healthy in this body, with releasing the excess unhealthy weight, but more than the numbers on the scale, feeling alive and vibrant in my body and having a healthy relationship with food. So today I am honored and humbled to share with you key principles that I learned, that I instilled in my own life, and that I guide my patients and clients on to reclaim, because we were born all with it, a healthy relationship with food, for you to be your captain of your own ship. Food addiction, emotional eating, emotional overeating, this is really challenging stuff for two main reasons. One, we have to eat. Unless you're breatharian, you have to eat, and probably daily. And secondly, here is at the crux of this, the self-judgment, the self-criticism that can come with emotional overeating, with eating in alignment, with stuffing in the food that doesn't serve you, makes you feel bad about yourself. And that feeling bad about yourself takes you back to the food again that's going to numb you out. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. And I'm so excited today to share with you three huge, for me, they were life-changing, three life-changing practices, ideas, mindsets to break out of that cycle and feel freedom with food and feel a sense of vitality and control with your food. One, and some of them might be controversial. We're going to get into it in the Q&A if you want. But in the first one, I'm going to ask a question for each of these three categories. First one, are you in an S&M relationship with your food? Does your food love you back? And what I mean by that is so many people forget that they are in a relationship with food. Just like any other being you are with, your partner maybe, your child, your mother, father, your friends, your business partners or business workers. Food is something you come into relationship with every single day. What's that relationship like? Is it one in which you are being punished by the food you eat? You might say, that's a strong word. But if you eat food and it causes you to have fibroids, a heavy, painful menstrual cycle, it causes you to have severe perimenopausal, postmenopausal symptoms, which are not normal. And here's a physician to tell you that's not normal. If you struggle with overweight, if you feel brain fog, if you feel literally sick after eating, whether it's you break out or digestive bloating issues or diabetes or heart issues, the list goes on. That is a punishing diet. So are you in a relationship with food that punishes you? And you're still talking about, oh, I love, 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 love my French fries, that pie, that even that wonderful vegan processed food. You're talking about how much you love it, but it's not loving you back. Think about this situation. A suitor comes to come and woo you. They want to take you on a date. You take a good look at this person and you see characteristics immediately that have red flags on them. They may look wonderful on paper. They may be even so good to look at, but you can see the signs to steer clear of them. Maybe it's somebody you've been in a relationship with before. You've done this whole go around and you ended up completely hurt, a terrible ending to that relationship, but he or she comes back again. Let's do it again. Let's go on it again. and you think to yourself, oh, no, 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 I've been here before. I don't want this. It seems so clear when we're thinking about relationship with other people. Take that to another elemental relationship, your food. If you eat, fill in the blank. I'll give you myself as an example, bread. Bread, every time I would eat that, brain fog, depression, unwanted weight gain, could not have any boundaries around it. I could not stop at one slice or two slices. That was my thing. And here's another thing I want to talk about. What might be great for Penny, Sylvie, Natasha might just not be good for you, right? A certain person might have all the characteristics that make him or her a great partner for somebody else, but not for you. That self-awareness, that radical self-awareness is so key. When you see a food that doesn't treat you well, does not love you back, and you know from past experience, do you steer clear of it? Or do you go on the merry-go-round with it over and over and over and over again? So my number one thing that I want to share with you here is to honor yourself and be very clear that you are in a relationship with food, and get clear about which foods love you back and ditch the ones that don't. Take that in for a moment. That might seem very strong, and we'll talk about in the Q&A if you have questions, but I want to move on to number two. The second, how do you feel after you have eaten certain foods, all the foods you eat? I call this the aftertaste. Not the physical taste that lingers in your tongue, but how you feel emotionally, physically, mentally, emotionally after eating certain foods. Getting very clear about that. Because what I want to share with you in the second point is when I was in my residency, so I did my internal medicine residency at NYU in New York. And one of the hospitals I had to work in was Bellevue. And I wanted so much, this was my top choice, this residency, because Bellevue is the oldest public hospital in America, takes care of a lot of homeless people, a lot of immigrants. And that was at the time, that was my passion, to take care of the underserved. It also takes care of a lot of people who have a lot of addiction issues. And there's always sometimes an overlap between being underserved and especially homeless and addiction issues. So addiction medicine was something I really had to understand. And one of the things we had to learn was this idea of the stages of change. When you're ready to let go of a behavior, you need to assess, how ready am I? And there are 5 stages. I won't go through all of them right now, but the one I want you to understand is the idea of pre-contemplation. That's the first stage. Pre-contemplation means that you don't even realize that it's an issue for you. You think this is normal. This is me eating this way is normal, or this is what it's always been done. Are you there? Or are you in contemplation stage, which is when you start saying, this might be a problem, like me in that bathroom stall. I've got a problem. Before you can even think about making changes, you need to get to a sense of, I've got a problem, and be very clear about that. And that gets to the idea of, do you believe in everything in moderation? Because I do not. Now more than 20 years as a doctor doing this work, I do not believe everything in moderation. There are food scientists whose entire job is to sit down and create a flavor portfolio, food compounds to keep you coming back for more. And those compounds are in restaurants, not just fast food chains, on the shelves of your grocery store. In my book, talk about the McDonaldization of the world. How McDonald's I see now everywhere. I travel a lot, everywhere in the world. And what that's about is that flavor portfolio that's meant to keep you addicted. an incredible combination of salt and sugar and fast carbohydrates and oils all together. So this is not about your willpower. This is about understanding that there are foods out there that will surpass your willpower, that will cause dopamine in your brain to start surging out and keep you wanting more. You can't moderate these foods. So I do not believe in everything in moderation. And rather than beating yourself up and saying, why can't I moderate the amount I'm eating? Accept. Move from pre-contemplation to contemplation and say, I've got a problem with this food. She might not, he might not, but I do. And that's okay. And so I choose to step away. And that can be so, so freeing. Number 3, and this is for me, is at the heart of what I want to share with you before we open up Q&A. What does your self-love practice look like? What does your daily self-love practice look like? Dr. Tettey shared with me that the 2024 theme for HeartSmarts is all about, I'm going to read it so I make sure I say it properly, fall in love with taking care of yourself. I love that. It is my daily practice. I'm a mom of a 4-year-old. I'm a doctor, dancer, poet. I have a busy, beautiful, full life. Best believe throughout the day, self-love practices all throughout. Because I've been on the other side. I've been in a hospital bed from trying to take my own life in medical school. I've been behind a bathroom stall, stuffing down bread and saying to myself, I can't, but still doing it. I've been in that dark, dark place. And as I write in my poem, darkness is a beginning, darkness is a beginning. Self-love is non-negotiable for me. Self-care practices are how I keep a freedom-filled relationship with food. They're how I keep so vitally healthy. So my question to you again, what does your self-love practices look like? Self-love is not something that is just about getting a spa or massage. It's deeper than that. Because as I said before, one of the ways emotional eating gets people, how food addiction gets people, is through the self-negative talk, the self-criticism, the self-hate that comes when you do something that's not in alignment with what you want to do. You finish that box of pizza or those box of donuts and you are so angry with yourself. And that negative self-talk keeps you feeling so bad. And that's a vibration of more of those donuts, of more of those foods that are there to punish you. So self-love stops that whole process in its tracks because you are giving yourself the continual statement, I love me as I am. I love me despite this. I'm going to say something here that if you take away one thing, it's this. I've never seen anybody sustain beautiful, positive lifestyle and health changes through self-hate. You might criticize yourself, say, you got to do this, otherwise you're nothing, all these negative and hate-filled, really, words to yourself, and you lose the 10 pounds and you make the marathon goal. But what happens, that I've seen over and over again, is that self-criticism catches up with you and you find yourself ricocheting back to behaviors that are in alignment with a lack of self-love. Love yourself through the up level. Love yourself through the relapse. And self-love practices help you do that beautifully. I'm going to give 2 examples, 2 very practical examples of some self-love practices. We can talk about more during the Q&A. But one I love is this right here, scalp massaging. I created a poem dance course. What that is I write a poem, I create a dance, you watch the dance and hear the poetry, and that's part of the medicine. And then there's a whole course where I holistically guide you through healing a certain issue. So I have about 4 of these now. The last one I did was called Crown, because I had so many patients, clients, friends coming to me and saying, how do I heal this naturally? How do I reclaim a love for my crown naturally? Scalp massage is one of the most beautiful ways to do that. Literally putting your head, I talk about how your hair, whether or not you have it, you might be balding, no hair, you still have the energetic space of that. And that is where the seat of your crown chakra is. That is where you have the deepest, most beautiful connection to the divine, the cosmos. I call this your antenna to the divine. That's part of that poem. When you are massaging literally the roots of those antennas, the soil, your scalp, not only do you bring beautiful circulation there, not only do you help with hair growth, natural moisturizing of your hair, beyond all of that, it is your way of healing trauma, wounds, lack of self-love about this. So self-massage in general and scalp massage specifically is a beautiful self-love ritual that I recommend daily. 3 minutes will do the trick. The second one is joyful movement. Joyful movement brings you into the present. My favorite is dance. And one thing that's so beautiful about dance is that you can watch dance and actually receive healing. That's a big part of the work I do. You don't even have to dance. Your mind is dancing, literally. There's studies that show when you watch somebody dance, and I will dance for you in just a moment, the part of the brain of the dancer that's being lit up because of the movements that she's doing, the same part of the brain that's lighting up is lighting up in you. So the audience brain lights up in the exact same areas as the person who is dancing. That's incredible medicine. But you moving, whether it's dancing, walking, jump rope, swimming, whatever fills you with joy, what that does is it takes you out of the head, the monkey mind, and brings you into the body. And when you're in a state of presence and when you are aligned with your joy, again, that is the vibration of freedom. That is the vibration of love. And then you can start making food choices that are in alignment with that. What this is really about is shedding the head. And that is the name of the last poem in my book, Delicious Healing, Shed the Head. I'm going to dance it for you now. And I invite you as I dance to just listen to the words if you want to, watch my movement if you want to, or do both. 90%. And as you are doing that, allow the medicine to come forward, to come in. Shed the head. We walk with the shrunken remains of it. Is love our vestige? We walk with the shrunken remains of it, trying to hide it like an unsatisfactory appendage, like a fin. What are the apertures to our older selves? Kindness, tears, unadulterated joy. Silence is being replaced by any noise we can make, and we are making it loudly, deafening the present. What are the undiscovered folds of the brain? Tucked into their recesses is a reassurance. We are from the same tribe. But love has been coded into gradations, degraded into quotients. As we make the cut, somehow none of us is making the cut. How does one shed the head? If you forget everything, remember this: you have a place at the table. Remember that the most important memory is right now and was always right now. Forget it. The memory is gone. Can you remember this? Yes.
Connected to Tumi Johnson.
Before we segue into Q&A, I want to invite you, in closing, to meditate after this time is over together on 3 self-love practices that you know bring you joy, that you know put you in a state of presence, and start doing them every single day. It can be absolutely life-changing. I'm excited to share more with you, but I want to do it in a way that is absolutely in response to your questions. So I'm going to leave it there. Dr. Tettey, I think we have some time now. Good, ample time?
Yes. Yep, so I'm gonna mute everyone. Dr. Tumi, you'll just have to unmute yourself. So I
Sure.
forgot to do that at the beginning.
Perfect.
All right, great. So if you all have any questions, you can put them in the chat as always, but we're gonna actually ask you some questions to make this more interactive. And so in full transparency, tonight was supposed to be kind of a workshop. I bought Dr. Tumi's book just because I wanted to support her, and I started reading it. And so the plan was to go through the whole book and get some questions out of it and then pose them to you all this evening. And when I went to write out the questions on Saturday, I couldn't get past the first 3 pages. I sent her this long list of like 12 questions just from the first 2 pages. And I bring that up because for those of you who this is your issue, emotional eating, food addiction, any of that, this book, Delicious Healing, I don't know if it's backwards, in front of you, is excellent. And it really would be awesome to start some kind of a group where we read it together, and maybe at some points Dr. Tumi could join us. And so later in this meeting, I'm going to put a link in the chat. And if you feel like perhaps this is your time to really start working on this, digging deeper into this, you can fill out the link for that, and I'll actually put it in there now since I'm mentioning it. But I feel like this would be a great book for us to read together and really start to pull back the layers. And for all of us, the reasons perhaps why we might suffer from emotional eating differ, but I think we can relate to a lot of what Dr. Tumi has said. So I'm just going to put this in the chat. Only fill it out if you would be interested in joining a group to read Delicious Healing together and possibly have Dr. Tumi join us. I've not asked her yet, so let's see if
Short
that's an
answer,
option.
yes.
So that's the link for that. And then Dr. Tumi also shared some discount codes for her book and also for some other things that she just mentioned. And so I'll put those in a few minutes so you all have a chance to first click on that link. So Dr. Tumi, the first question that I have for you, in the book you talk about everyone having a vision of what their optimally healthy life would look like. And so I want you all to put that in the chat. When you think about your optimally healthy life, like what does that look like for you? What is the vision for you? And if you don't have a vision of that, please put that in the chat as well. Dr. Tumi, my question for you is, what did you mean by that, your optimally healthy life? What kinds of things should we be thinking about, and why should we have a vision for that?
That's a beautiful question. Optimal, zenith, right? Not thinking of like, there's in the culture we have in the States and in Western world, it's all about preventing disease, reversing disease. And I think we have to step out of that paradigm and say, forget disease. What is my optimal? What can I create? Who can I be? So forgetting the focus on disease, but the focus rather on my most vibrant, beautiful, radiant self, who we're meant to be on this earth. And so that's why I say you're optimal. And I also say your because it's different for everyone. And I have found that having your own specific why gives you a motivation that is so powerful. When you know your own why, I'm working with a beautiful woman right now who said, I want to be able to play with my grandchildren, right? Like her optimal vision is her playing with her grandchildren. And when you have that specificity, that really helps you stay in alignment. And then the other part of your question, Dr. Tettey, was the last part. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Because I think it was really important.
Just more so, why is it important for
Yes,
us to
that's
know?
why. To know your own, because you're able to be clear about your why. Our whys are foundational in being able to stick to what we want to do.
Great. So in the book, you give that example, and everybody, please share in the chat because as you share, we can be holding you accountable as well to whatever it is that you're sharing with us. You're kind of speaking it out loud as a starting point for you to start healing it. And
Yeah.
so in the book, you mention the time that you are in McDonald's and you're observing the people in McDonald's, and there's this a few young kids who are kind of out of control after they eat their McDonald's. And then there's this man in the corner who's kind of eats his food and then starts to kind of go crazy, so to speak. And what that made me think about is the impact of food on our mental health and something we may not necessarily think about. So we may think that we are eating this comfort food to feel better, but perhaps when we eat the sugar or the fried food, we're actually increasing our anxiety or increasing our depression. Can you speak to the impact of certain foods on mental health?
Absolutely. I experienced it myself personally. I had severe suicidal depression. And it was, sure, there were some circumstances in my life that were very hard, but I will share with you that when I changed my diet to whole plant foods diet, I came, I was put on depression medication, came off of that. Now, I'm not telling you to do that without supervised medical help and support, but my depression completely went away. And I've seen it over and over again since that time working with other people, not just depression, but also other mood and even thought issues. So bipolar, I've seen, there's actually now been some studies of linking gluten intake with bipolar. Definitely we know processed sugar, MSG, monosodium glutamate, which is in so many things you wouldn't believe, affects literally the neurons in our brain, which affects our mood. If you are also taking any foods that cause an intolerance, maybe it's soy, maybe it's dairy. Dairy is a big one. Those of us, especially African descent, most of the world is lactose intolerant. And yet people are still trying to take in cheese and milk and all of that stuff. And what that does is it causes leaky gut issues, gut dysbiosis, which means an imbalance of good and bad bacteria. And guess where so many of your immune cells and also the cells that help with your mood are? They are in your gut, in your 12 feet gut. And the vagus nerve, the longest nerve in the body, vagus to the brain, goes from the gut to the brain. There's a constant bidirectional communication between your intestines, your gut microbiome, and how your food is mood, I like to say. So it absolutely affects. And I literally felt a fog lifted when I stopped a lot of the foods I used to take. So it is, I could spend a whole hour just on that topic. Great question.
Great. And so as a follow-up to that question, in the book, you talk about the time of your parents' divorce and how at that time you felt like you were self-medicating with processed food, and that was your drug of choice. And I often say for many people who kind of feel proud that they may not drink or smoke, they may be using food as a drug. Can you speak more to the idea of that food being someone's drug of choice? And as Dr. Tumi is doing that, if the idea of food as a drug resonates with you, I want you all to put in the chat which food or food group is your drug of choice? Is it sugar? Is it fried foods? Is it heavy foods? Is it refined carbohydrates? Like, what is your drug of choice if you can resonate with the idea of food as a drug?
Thank you for that question, Dr. Tettey. Yeah, I love what you said about how many people can pride ourselves, especially in some of our cultural groups of, oh, I don't do those drugs. I don't do drugs, but every single day they're drugging themselves with food. And I think most people are aware on some level that that's what's happening. But if you're not, here is how you might know that if you're feeling a sense of an emotion, and this is what I didn't talk about a lot in the presentation, but it's a whole chapter in my book, that if you are uncomfortable with an emotion that comes up for you related to trauma and experience, in my case, for example, my parents' divorce, and you feel some sort of difficult emotion, shame, sadness, anger is a big one. A lot of us, women especially, have a problem or judge ourselves for feeling angry. You have this emotion, all of a sudden, that candy bar is looking really, really good, or there's that pizza is really, really looking good. And it wasn't an hour ago. Another wonderful way to know if this is you, you're like, oh, all of a sudden I'm hungry. I'm just hungry. I just need to eat some cookies. If you're very specific about the food you need to eat, especially if that food is processed, it's probably not true hunger. So being able to delineate true hunger from what I call soul hunger or heart hunger is so important. If you can't fill that hunger with bananas or apples or a nice, beautiful salad or green smoothie, that's not true hunger. That's more heart emotion hunger. And that was really helpful for me. And it's one way I guide my patients and clients in delineating, is this true hunger, or is this really about some kind of emotion I'm trying to suppress and numb down? So food is, I think it's arguably the most common drug to navigate through life and through emotions. And at the same time, it has been incredibly freeing to walk away from that, because here's what I need to share. Those difficult emotions are a light. They are a spotlight to your pain. And pain, pay attention inside now. Pain. It is a spotlight to showing you what needs to be healed, what you need to pour love and attention to. But for you to do that, you have to look at it. And the self-love practices help you look at it without it feeling so hard to look at that trauma. That's why the self-love practices are so important. That spotlight is there to say, hey, this is what needs to be healed. But if we cut off that light, we don't allow that light to be shown through just stuffing ourselves with food, we never heal what's been waiting to be healed. And on the other side, I will share with you, is such freedom and wholeness. That is the same etymology as healing, wholeness.
Great. So I put that acronym in the chat because that was very powerful. Pay attention inside now, the acronym for pain. So I think that was great for us to think about. And so, Dr. Tumi, you talk about the McDonaldization of the world. And the question that I had when I was reading that part of the book is, some people think about the idea of giving themselves a treat. And perhaps we can debate if unhealthy food is a treat or not. But is there any space at all for something like McDonald's or something like chocolate or ice cream? Or you can look in the chat, everyone put what their addiction is. So refined processed sugar, is there any space at all for that? You talked about not believing in moderation. So are we getting rid of it completely, or is there space for it somewhere?
I love that question because it gets to the point, the idea of deprivation. And I don't ever, so I'm even stranger in the sense that I am raw vegan. I eat all raw. I've been raw for 13 years now. And I don't advocate that everyone be raw. What I advocate for is that you do try to eat a whole food, plant-based diet because the literature is clear about the health benefits of that. But this question of, is there space for this? Is there space for this? I'm going to go back to that second point, or the first point. What is your relationship with that food? If you eat ice cream and you can take like 5 bites of ice cream, and okay, maybe your blood sugar, goes a little bit out of whack, or, it's a little bit more processed sugar than you want, but you're able to moderate it. You can leave it. You can come to it in 6 months' time and take another little bite. That relationship is pretty healthy. It's okay. If you get given a Haagen-Dazs and you know that pint or half of that is going to be gone and you feel sick afterwards and you don't feel good, not just physically, but about yourself, why make space for that? And let me be clear about that is not a treat. And I love that word about treat because I talk about this a lot with people I work with. Is a treat something that makes you feel sick afterwards, feel bad about yourself? That's not a treat. And I love the other point that it's really also not necessarily about the food, but it's your relationship with the food. How are you able to navigate that food? I know many people who have a wonderful relationship with bread and do fine. I didn't. And that understanding, that self-understanding and self-acceptance, it doesn't feel for me deprivation, not eating bread. It feels like freedom. So I think those are the questions you ask yourself. How do I feel afterwards? Is this truly a treat for me? Do I feel good afterwards, the morning after? I hope that's helpful.
Yes, very helpful. And just out of curiosity, if there's anyone in here who can take 5 bites of ice cream and then not touch it again for 6 months, please put a 1 in the chat just so we could see who you are, so we can spotlight you and admire you. Oh wow, there's quite okay. So maybe ice cream is not your thing. So maybe I should say whatever your thing is, you could take 5 bites and put it down for 6 months. All right, Dr. Tumi, I'm just kidding. Can you explain the gut microbiome and what happens to the gut microbiome when we eat these unhealthy foods? Specifically, does it cause anything like quote unquote gut bugs or anything to increase? Does it increase the cravings going forward? Like, how is the gut microbiome impacted by unhealthy eating for people who may not be aware?
Absolutely. We are arguably more microbes than human. We have trillions of bacteria, of microbes, living organisms that make us up. And a lot of them are in our gut. And it's exactly as you said, what you feed expands. What you pay attention to expands. What you feed in your gut literally expands. So think of your gut microbiome as a bunch of different bacteria. And we know already from experience and from the studies that the foods that are high in fiber, that's plant foods. Fiber is only found in plant foods. Fiber is a beautiful prebiotic, which means it's actual food for healthy, good bacteria that supports your immune system, that helps prevent disease. What you feed expands. If you give, let's say, ice cream or dairy to your gut microbiome, the dairy, let's just make it very simple, the dairy or ice cream bacteria are going to increase. And they're going to start asking for more. This is so, you can even just do this experiment. You will eat something and you're like, I didn't even really want that in the first place. Something unhealthy, for example. Let's just keep the ice cream because I had ice cream and I don't feel very good. I didn't even really want it, but I don't feel very good. I am not touching that again. Very clear in your mind. I am not going to touch that again. And then the next night you're looking in the refrigerator and the ice cream is looking really, really good. And you say, okay, and you have a little bit more of it. And then by the third night, that's all you think about. That's a classic example of what the gut microbiome does. The more you feed your gut something, the more it's going to want it. And the beautiful thing about that is our bodies are in constant flux, constant regeneration. So I've seen patients and clients of mine totally change not just their taste buds, but their gut microbiome within a few days. But what that requires is possibly a couple of days of just discomfort, of saying, oh, I'm wanting that Haagen-Dazs, but I know that if I stay away from it for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, maybe it's going to need 7 days, I'm going to want it less and less and less, because you are literally starving out those bacteria that want that food. And the opposite happens. The more you're giving yourself the green juices, the green smoothies, the apples, citrus is in season right now in the Northern Hemisphere, the more your body is like, oh, give me more, give me more. So it's a beautiful thing if you reframe it in a positive way.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to do a quick pulse check for everyone. As Dr. Tumi is speaking, I just want you all to share in the chat what's coming up for you. Are you receiving it and everything makes sense to you? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling some kind of emotion regarding having to give up any of the foods that you like? Like, what's coming up for you honestly in this moment? And Dr. Tumi, my next question for you is, someone put a question in the chat. How can you do this, I guess, improve your eating habits or overcome emotional eating or food addiction and still stay connected to people who are not on this healing journey? So how can you do this if other people in your life are not doing it?
That's a really wonderful question. I'm the only person in my family who eats a plant foods diet. And I have wonderful connections with my family members. Probably better, definitely better than I did when I was eating more similarly to them. Stay with that for a second. My point here is that when you focus on yourself and your own healing, you uncover really the best version of yourself. And that is a blessing, not just to your life, but to everybody's life who comes in contact with you, including your loved ones. So I see many people, this is a big thing with couples. I want to eat like my husband, or I need to eat the same way he's eating or she's eating. But it doesn't work for you. And so you're punishing yourself to try to save the relationship. And it's one of the worst things you can do for the relationship, because you're not at your best. So what I say to people who are saying, how do I do this if the people I love are not on a healing journey, or their healing journey does not look like mine? Because that's what's really happening. They're on a journey. You may not see it. Everyone's on a journey of wholeness. It may take them longer. It might look differently. But if it looks different from you, understanding that that is okay. It's more than okay. Focus on you. Be the light. And you would be, first of all, completely floored about how much that can inspire somebody you didn't realize. But the other element of that, again, is the releasing of judgment, right? Because behind that question sometimes is, how do I make sure my loved one doesn't feel judged by me? How do I make sure I don't judge my loved one for not being? And that is a beautiful remembrance that it's about here and not about comparison. I said in the beginning, some people have wonderful relationships with bread. I just don't. And that's about self-acceptance, not comparison, being in my lane, so to speak. Understanding as I do that, I'm again uncovering the best version of myself to best love the people I come in contact with. So the short answer is focus on doing you. Do you. Release judgment, do you. And when that happens, that actually strengthens often the bonds of togetherness and harmony and love.
And so, Dr. Tumi, if we're saying, going back to the line of questioning about food as a drug, if we're saying that there is an addiction and that certain foods have these properties that make people addicted to them, and we're calling food a drug, if it was a drug, in the traditional sense of the word, somebody might go to rehab. If it was alcohol, they might go to rehab. What should the person do if they are on this call, on this Zoom? And I was looking in the chat during the pulse check, and a lot of people are feeling anxious. So something's coming up for them. And I think it's the idea of letting go of this food that they probably been trying to for a long time. What is the next level of help beyond just coming to a meeting like this, hearing you, and then forever being cured after this, which for many will not happen. So what kind of support should people be looking for?
That's a great question. So first of all, I'm going to take a moment, if you're okay, and just let's stay with that feeling of anxiety right now. And for any of you who are feeling anxious, I just invite you to be aware of your connection right now to Mother Earth, to Mama Gaia. This is Women's History Month, always holding us. Maybe she's holding you right now with your feet on the floor, maybe your sacrum, the base of your spine. You are always held. And I want you to take a deep breath right now in through your nostrils. Hold that breath and then let it out through your mouth. The next time you do that, I want you to think about as you're inhaling peace, inhaling calm, hold it. And then when you exhale, exhaling all anxiety, all fear. Take a deep inhale, hold it, feel the peace percolating, and then let it go. Let go of the fear and the anxiety. You always have your breath to come back to. I am not sharing any of this with you to increase fear and anxiety, although I will say, again, we're back to difficult emotions. There is a spotlight on what needs to be healed. Let the anxiety be a portal. Don't stop there. Ask it. Ask the anxiety. I do this with the members of my membership program. Ask the emotion, what are you here to teach me? What are you fear here to teach me? What do I need to let go of? And understand you are a powerful being and you can heal anything. To answer your question of what the next step is, I mentioned something that you can start doing. It can be very daunting to think about letting go of something that has served you. I'm going to say that again, letting go of something that has served you, because the food has served you. That was so helpful for me to realize. Those bagels, that bread, helped me get through a time that, wow, I didn't think I could survive through. And I didn't go to heroin or cocaine or other behaviors, but I did food as a way to drug, but it served as a comfort. And that's okay. But if you want to level up, if you want to say, it's been okay, but now I want to do better, then what I recommend is, instead of thinking of letting go, thinking about replacing. And that is where the self-love practices come in, because what's really wanting in your body is your heart wanting nourishment, is your heart wanting solace and comfort. And the food has been, frankly, a lousy stand in for that. I say lousy because, again, it leaves you feeling bad or feeling sick in some way. It never addresses the real wound. That's why you have to keep going to it, the food. But if you bring these self-love practices, take the time, I ask you, take the time and meditate on what practices can I do that help me feel present, that help me feel that I can look at this wound and begin to heal it. It is worth your time. And I will also share, and it's talked about more in my book, keep honing those practices. What do I mean? Meditation might be the thing that helps Lisa finally look at her trauma, help Lisa get over her addiction to food. It might not be for you. You might need something else. You might need dancing. You might need yoga. You might need all three of them. My self-love practices are scattered through my day. And people often think of me as being very low maintenance, but in some ways I'm very high maintenance because I have these things throughout my day, non-negotiable, that keep me centered and calm and constantly healing and vibrantly healthy. But they're non-negotiable. Find those for you and keep honing. And then from a practical level, get honest about the level of feeling of addiction you have. There's Overeaters Anonymous that has like an addiction style of healing to them. Finding books. I invite you to read Delicious Healing. I invite you to check out my poem dance, Release the Weight, if that's something for you and it addresses some of these issues. And that is offered as a discount too. start just having that intention of, I'm going to start seeking holistic-minded practitioners and guides to help me with this, will change your life.
Awesome, thank you. So this is a two-part question. Now we're going to kind of shift to a focus on people who have children, or
Mm.
not necessarily biological children, but children in their lives that they give food to. And so something interesting that happens in this program, HeartSmarts, is that the participants will learn about the healthier ways of eating and they will adopt them, but they will still be feeding the unhealthy foods, perhaps to their children, grandchildren, husbands, other family members, etc. But this is a more question centered around children. What is the problem with doing that? With preparing one thing for yourself, which is healthy, and perhaps still giving the processed foods or the fast foods to children in your life? That's the first part of the question. The second part, someone is asking in the chat, how do you know if your children are full? That it's easy for us to know for ourselves, but how do you know if your children are full, and should you force them to finish their plate of food? And I'll add to that, does doing that lead to some kind of dysfunctional eating as well? So we'll go back to the first one and I can ask the second one again if you'd like. So the first one is, what is the problem with feeding yourself something healthy, but giving other people in your family, especially children, the unhealthy options?
That is a great question. I'm going to focus on the children aspect. I think I already answered the one around maybe a partner or another loved one, meaning a functioning, think for yourself adult who's making decisions about his or her food choices. The best way to, I think, try to influence those people is being the light, being the example. I have seen that work way better than trying to browbeat them or shame them to changing. But children is a powerful saying about children will not do what you say, they will do what you do. The most powerful way to influence your child or a child that you are helping in some way to influence, to raise, to become a vibrantly healthy adult is your example. So I'm a mom of a 4-year-old wonderful human boy, and that is part of what I have to do. It's part of my work, is that I'm not just going to give myself what I consider the best food in the planet, but then give him things that are less than that. And at 4 already, we've had countless conversations, many, not as many as I thought I would actually need, of why he's not eating animal products and dairy. That's animal products, flesh and dairy and processed foods. And he gets it. And I think part of the reason he gets it is because I'm explaining it to him, but more than that, I'm living it. And there can be this feeling of a disconnect, and there is a disconnect if you're feeding yourself what you believe to be the best foods, but then you're offering unhealthy foods to a child that you love. Now, if the child is asking for that unhealthy food because they're used to it, then I think being very gentle and beginning to speak to them as much as you're able to, given the parameters of your relationship. If you're the mother or father, I believe that's your job. But if you're not, really having a conversation with the parents and with the child, that's a more sensitive thing, but talking to them about why you choose to eat the way you do, why these foods are healthy, giving them education, giving them books to read at their level. And don't dumb down children. Children are way smarter than a lot of us give them credit for. My 4-year-old will get it. He'll see another child eating something and he'll just be like, that's not my food. That's just not, we don't eat that way, you know? So it can happen. And I definitely think the big thing is that they look at you, what you are doing. The second question, Dr. Tettey, please remind me, second aspect.
Yeah, so the person is asking, they're able to tell when they are full,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they don't know when their child is full, and should we be forcing children to finish everything on their plate? And then I added to that, if you do that, does that lead to any dysfunctional eating habits?
Great question. So I am not aware of the studies around if it does. I cannot quote you studies, but my anecdotal experience is absolutely, it's not a good idea to do that. And it can lead to some severe, I mean, it's also just kind of, it's logical. You tell a child, you have to finish this on your plate. And even if their body is saying, I don't want this, they're being forced to eat that. What you're doing is you're hijacking, you are overriding their own satiety cues. That is a setup for disordered eating. And I can talk to you about that personally because that was my experience. And I've seen it with other people. And it's a very common one. And, bless my parents, part of the reason of you got to finish that, what's on your plate, didn't come from a place of wanting to hurt me. It came from a place of, I want to make sure my child is eating enough. Back to that first question around how do I know they're full? Children are so much better at listening to their body cues than adults because adults have overridden our satiety cues for so long. Most people are eating while they're on the phone or on the computer or going somewhere. Nobody's present with their food anymore. Children still have a sense of, I'm full or I'm not. And here's the other thing, children are constantly changing, healing, and growing. My 4-year-old one day will eat very, very little because he's not hungry. Another day, he's going through a growth spurt and he'll eat an amount that makes me go, oh my God. So what's most important, I think, is asking them, do you feel full? I do this thing with my child, and you might use it if you find it interesting. I'll say one is like, not hungry, very hungry, excuse me. Hungry, 100 is I'm full. And during the meal, I'll say, Sky, how are you feeling? What number are you? He'll say, I'm 50, I'm 80, I'm 30, depending on how full he is. And it's a beautiful way also of you feeling more confident about their ability to gauge their fullness. So he's very good about knowing when he's full. And sometimes he's not going to have much of an appetite because he's healing something. Just like adults, when a child is healing something, their appetite shuts down because the body's going into healing mode. But if you see my child robustly healthy, I never, ever tell him to finish what's on his plate. If he's done, he's done. And I honor that. And someday he'll ask for more. And someday he'll say, I'm done, mama. And I encourage that with my patients and clients too, because that is really helping them actually also strengthen the muscle of understanding their satiety. And again, understanding there's an ebb and flow in their growth cycle. And with that, children flourish. I have personally worked with starving children, with malnourished children. Children are very, very on cue about when they're full and when they're not. But it's up to us parents to trust the process.
Great. And I just want to honor a comment that's in the chat that states that when we did the deep breathing activity and were asked to think about what the emotion is trying to teach them, that the person started tearing up. And I just want to honor that because I feel like it's probably a large sentiment in this space tonight. And for those of you who may be feeling sad or feeling some type of heavy emotion, Dr. Tumi would ask that we sit with it and ask what that emotion is trying to teach us as well. But I think that's the starting point. Whatever that is perhaps what we're pushing down with the food. So not getting off of this meeting and going to get something to eat, but really sitting with it and maybe journaling or something like that. And maybe considering joining the emotional eating support group if we start that. All right, so Dr. Tumi, the last question, and if anyone else has a question that was not answered that you really want me to ask, please place it in the chat again. So you discuss in the book the mental state of people who are eating healthy, that just because they're eating healthy, it doesn't mean they're well, because their energy around it is still dysfunctional. And it made me think about when we went raw. We did 30 days raw last year, and we did the 40-day juice cleanse this year. And there were certain people who were very methodical with it. Like, I have to eat this on this day and eat this now and drink it this way and do that. And it kind of took away from the experience of it. And so can you talk about what you mean when you say you might be eating all of the proper foods, but if you're doing it in a certain way, then you're still not well?
Yes. I'm talking about self-talk there. I'm talking about the way we speak to ourselves about ourselves. And so on paper, it can look like you're doing everything perfectly. You are eating the perfect foods, you're eating organic, you're doing raw, you're juice fasting, or I've had clients who are exercising like crazy. And what's so interesting is I've had these patients come to me and they're doing everything perfectly, but they're feeling down or sad, or they're getting sick. And they're like, how can I be getting sick when I'm doing everything perfectly? And then when you uncover, you peel back, you see that perfection is a mask for negative self-talk. And what I mean by negative self-talk, I want to get very clear. I mean conditional self-love. That you believe you're only worthy of love, love from another person, and or love from yourself, only if you XYZ. You eat all raw, you crush that 40-day juice fast, you make it to this personal best goal. The moment you start doing that, there's something that you have dismantled within. Because, and I talk about this, my whole last chapter is love. Love to me is the ultimate medicine, but more than that, it's who we are. And many times your body is going to ask you throughout your life, do you love me? Do you really love me? And your answer many times will be yes, if. Yes, if. And so that's what I'm saying there is really asking yourself, what is the energy signature around how I eat? I don't care what it looks like. You can send me the most perfect food diary. Does it come from a place of, "Oh, I get to eat this way. I'm so blessed to be able to eat this way. It is fun eating this way." Or does it come from, I have to eat this way. I will not eat any way else. Have tos, cheats, treats. I listen for those words and I know exactly where we are, the way people speak about the way they eat. I was out because I was there. But now I wake up and I say, I get to eat this way. I choose. I don't have to. I could finish this and go get a hamburger if I wanted to. I'm not going to want to, but it's my choice. It is my choice to choose something differently because I feel my best eating that way. So I'm getting at that. Become very clear about how you speak to yourself, about any conditions you have on the way you love yourself.
Just to add to that, because I know someone is thinking it, for the person who does want to go get the cheeseburger after this, and we can
Yes.
make cheeseburger, whatever it is, and they're not doing it because they know that it's not the best for them, but the thing they're going to eat is not what they want. They do want the cheeseburger, so they're not going to be satisfied with it. Is that a, should they just go get the cheeseburger? Or should they eat the healthy thing and just be unhappy?
Okay, sorry. Can you explain? So if I understand, they want the cheeseburger.
Yes, but they're going to go eat the salad because they know that's what they're supposed to do, but they actually do want the cheeseburger. And so they're going to eat the salad
Great
because it's,
question.
if anyone can relate to what I'm saying, put a
Yes,
one
got
in the
it.
chat. So they want the other thing, they're just not doing it because of what they've learned about the other thing, but they still want it.
Yes.
And so my question is, then what? Should they go have the
Go
cheeseburger?
and eat the cheeseburger, and then here's what you're gonna do. I know you're like, what?
We're going
I'm
to
not
scratch
thinking
that
that.
out of the
But but
recording.
but
So
but
but go ahead.
and eat that cheeseburger, and I want you to sit with that cheeseburger. Do not distract yourself. Don't eat the cheeseburger while talking to your friend about something really emotional. Do not eat the cheeseburger while reading or watching a movie. Sit with that cow. Sorry, but that's what it is. That cow, eat that, the cheese, the flesh, eat that mindfully, and then see how you feel afterwards and the day after. Educate yourself on why it might not be the best for body, mind, and soul to be eating this food, this meat. And then what's going to happen if you do it this way? It's always this. At some point, what you want is going to line up with what you desire. And by that, I mean what your mind is saying it wants is going to line up with your true heart's desires. And I'm saying that because it's really important that you do things from a place of true desire. And desire, I want to be clear, desire. D means of, sire means spirit, God. Desire has been adulterated in our culture. Desire means of the spirit, what's truly your soul alignment. But I'm saying eat the cheeseburger because I would love for you to make choices from a place of expansion and not have to, a place of choice. Eat that cheeseburger, pray over that cheeseburger, bless that cheeseburger, be mindful as you eat that cheeseburger, educate yourself on what that cheeseburger is going to do to your intestines and your organs and your entire body. And then at some point, I promise you do that, you will choose from a place of, you'll make a different choice. Your food choice will be different if you're eating mindfully and you're eating from a place of choice and not have to.
Okay, so I think that's a good place to end because that's a deep one. Because I think there are people who are saying, as bad as I might feel afterwards, I'm gonna always want the cheeseburger, but I'm gonna eat the salad. Uh, um, I know it's the right thing to do. And for me, having worked with many people who are on here for years, that's the one question I have. And it's a study that I'm going to do because no matter how much they learn, the craving for the other thing, it's there. It's like it sits on the shoulder, but they just don't do it. Go ahead.
I do want to say thank you for bringing that up. And I do want to say, I said all that, and that's the overarching answer. And what I also invite you to do is carve out a time of detox, what you all just did, that fast. Carve out a time as you build up your self-love practices, as you build up your unconditional love speech of getting off the cheeseburger, getting off the things that you know are not healthy, because as I said before, it's also the cheeseburger bacteria saying, feed me, feed me, feed me. And until you get off the drug many times, off that food, it's hard to recognize that. So while I say go get the cheeseburger tonight, what I would love for you to do is actually come up with a plan for detoxing off the foods that you know are not in alignment with your health. And in the same moment, right now, hopefully with what I share today, you're practicing the self-love practices. So you start making choices from that place and not from a place of have to or deprivation.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Tumi. And so as we begin Women's History Month and tomorrow is International Day of the Woman, what final words do you have for the women in here tonight about strength and health and anything that comes to mind for you to share in closing?
So I think March 8th is International Women's Day.
Mm.
But for me, I agree. For me, every day is Women's Day. And I think what's coming up to share is, we women are cyclical beings, and and just like the moon, our element is nature, and the moon signature is one of emotions. So what I think I want to share that's coming up is understanding that your emotions are your superpower. That again, they are a moonlight spotlighting what is there to be healed in a way that many people who are born in men's bodies are not able to do. And that's why they sometimes say women can be spiritual anchors for their families and the men in their lives, because we have that emotion as superpower. But many of us are like, I can't go there. I can't do that emotion. And so we stuff it. But what we're doing when we do that is we are denying our superpowers. So I invite you to start looking at those emotions, as difficult as they are, as a beginning, as a light, and knowing that you are a powerful being of nature. And therefore, you have the strength to look at what needs to be looked at and to heal. And by doing so, that is a blessing on yourself, your loved ones, your community, and the world.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Tumi. Thank you again for your amazing presentation. Just for your energy, we feel you and we receive all of the positivity that you bring to this space. And we will talk behind the scenes if we're going to do any type of group or anything. But I think, as you can see, this is really a topic that resonates with many people in this group. So for those of you who are interested in continuing this discussion, please make sure that you sign up to show your interest in a group just for this. So the reason I said International Women's Day is tomorrow is because HeartSmarts, we have a program tomorrow night in partnership with Plant Powered Metro New York. And on their flyer, it says tomorrow is International Women's Day. So I have to tell them. So that's where I got that from. So excuse me. But yes, we have a program tomorrow night on autoimmune diseases at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. So I will see you all tomorrow night. For those of you who are in the lifestyle program, we'll have a quick check-in meeting right after this. And then next Monday, we'll have Samantha Salmon joining us for the impacts of a plant-based diet on brain health. So you all will receive the link for that. So thank you everybody for being here this evening. Thank you for your honesty and sharing in the comments. We are going to figure this out, this emotional eating, food addiction thing. We're going to get it together. So anyway, I'm going to unmute all of you to give your thanks to Dr. Tumi, and I will see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Tumi.
you. Thank you, Dr.
so
Tumi.
much.
Thank you so much. This is well needed.
Incredible program, sir.
Amazing,
Thank you.
phenomenal.
Thank you,
Dr.
very
Jimmy.
much.
Thank you.
Bless you and
Bless your
have a
family.
great day.
So much to me. So much blessings.
God bless you.
Goodbye,
Oh my
Dr.
goodness.
Thank
Tettey.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless
Thank
you.
God bless. Yes.
For your
Everyone,
Thank you.
have a good
Yes.
evening.
Thank
Go
you.
cheeseburgers. Go
Oh,
You
cheeseburgers.
too.
Have a good evening.
good dog.
Cheeseburgers.
Thank you so much.
Whole cheeseburgers.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.